Hi class, I'm so glad you joined me, thank you. So I found an informed consent for providing services to minors from an organization that's based in South Carolina. It's called the Carolina Family Services of Greenville. It's a form that's divided into sections that really align with the ACA's Code of Ethics, which includes the following. The first section is a contact information, which meets that necessity to explain access to services as well as confidentiality in terms of supervision. There's an explanation of psychotherapy and its benefits and risks, confidentiality, appointments and how they are scheduled and canceled, payment and insurance reimbursement, which clarifies billing and fee arrangements, disclosure, protection of rights with HIPAA, and then finally an acknowledgement and consent that's signed by both the client as well as the caregiver. So from my observations, this consent form complies relatively well. It meets almost all of the stipulations from both South Carolina and ACA's Code of Ethics. It clearly articulates the role of a therapist. It gives a general understanding of treatment services, and it acknowledges the adherence to ethical standards as well as South Carolina state law and public law, which is 104-191. And it also outlines HIPAA's regulations for the client to understand. So what I thought was really interesting about this particular consent form and any of the forms I looked at in regards to minors is the concept of minor privacy in between them and their caregiver. So there's this focus on the necessity to withhold information from the parent, being if that information does not endanger the child. So in South Carolina, parents they have legal access to their child's mental health records. However, for the well-being of the child and the success of the counseling process, the parent is asked through the form to limit some of their access for the child's benefit. So this really helps build that trust in the therapeutic alliance by helping the child or adolescent feel more comfortable discussing, their personal matters without the threat of immediate disclosure to that parent or caregiver. So, however, the form does give a lot of stipulations around what will and will not be shared to help both the client and the parent to understand what they are signing. And a lot of those align with kind of the general exceptions of confidentiality that we understand from our reading. So knowing that by law, all therapists must break that confidentiality if a client is a threat to themselves or to others, if there's suspected abuse or neglect, as well as if a court of law subpoenas the records. So those were things I just wanted to make note of, but just kind of the added complications of working with minors. If I were to use this consent form in a practice in South Carolina and it be compliant with ACA's Code of Ethics, I would really need to add my qualifications, that I'm an ACA, I'm not an ACA, I'm an LPC intern, and then my relevant experiences and training. So while the form does a really good job at giving kind of a general and explanation of services, it's for the entire practice, and so I would want to go in and go into more depth about clinical goals, techniques, and procedures that would be used, as well as the risks and benefits of those services in a way that the parent and child would understand. I would also use opportunities to provide brief psychoeducation to bring clarification. Something else I want to make note is to add a stipulation with technology. Because I'm an intern, I would be under supervision, and so there would be limitations regarding protection of information and disclosure to a supervisor, as well as recordings, and so those would need to be made noted. It would also be necessary for me to explain how services would be continued if I were unable to provide those services. So thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to watching those videos.